Policies and procedures. So first, let's define what a policy actually is. It's a predetermined course of action which is established to provide a guide toward accepted business strategies and objectives. It's a direct link between the organization's vision and their day-to-day operations. Policies also help to identify the key activities and provide general strategy to the decision makers on how to handle issues as they come up. To define a procedure, it's the ultimate goal of every procedure to provide the reader with clear and easily understood plan of action required to carry out or implement a policy. A well-written procedure will also help eliminate some common misunderstandings by identifying job responsibilities and establishing boundaries for the job holders. So think about procedures being like the roadmap, where the trip details are highlighted on how to get where you're going. So policies and procedures are an essential part of an organization. Again, they're going to provide that roadmap for the day-to-day operations. They're going to ensure compliance with the laws and regulations, give guidance for decision-making, and then streamline any internal processes. When we first started our business, we didn't have any policies and procedures. And then as we started to bring on employees, we realized the importance of having specific procedures in place just to help people, again, with that that roadmap of what they need to do, what things look like, where to go for questions, especially when it comes to our employees, when it comes to like benefit questions and those sorts of things. If you have it all outlined, it's already there. Nobody has to keep it in their head or kind of wonder what the right rules are. So if you have specific policies and procedures written out, it just makes things a lot easier for everyone. So now we're going to discuss 5 key reasons it's important to have policies and procedures. Number 1, it's going to set expectations. So these allow an employer to commit to writing the company values and missions, and it sets kind of forth standards of behavior, conduct, and performance for your employees to follow. They again have that guide map of what's expected and know what's right. As a result, policies and procedures clearly define and set the expectation for employees and provide a source of reference for employees to be able to review and check if they're meeting those expectations. So it's kind of like, if you have children and you tell them that they have to be back home by 11 p.m. and some days you mean 11, some days you mean midnight, some days you mean 10 p.m. and then you get upset when they show up at 10:30 one night, even though they understood their time frame was that they had to be home by 11 o'clock. So if we all have and know what the expectations are, it just makes us easier for everybody to be able to follow them. It also helps keep management accountable. So this is number 2. In addition to setting standards for the employees, these P&Ps also set standards for the managers of a business. It provides the guidance to the managers for how they're going to conduct themselves and the standards with which they will be held to. It also provides transparency to everyone in the business so they can exactly see what's expected and in turn what they can expect from their managers as well. So again, it just clears up any confusion that people have. And it made it a whole lot easier, again, from a business perspective, just to make sure that you're given the same information every single time. So before we had our written policy and procedure manual, maybe when somebody would ask you a question, you'd answer it one way, and then the next time you'd answer it slightly different way, and it just leads to confusion. So once we had this in place, it was very easy for us to go back to our policies and procedures and say, hey, this is the rule. These are the policies and procedures that we have set forth, and this is how we're doing business. Doesn't mean you can't change those, but at least it's all written and everybody knows where to go to find those answers. Number 3 is ensuring compliance with the law, especially when you're doing a healthcare business or something along those lines. And most businesses are the same as well, that there's going to be things that legally you have to make sure that you're doing to keep people safe. From a healthcare perspective, you want to make sure that you're keeping your staff safe, all employees stay safe, as well as your patients too. So if everybody knows, again, what that threshold is and what that looks like and where they're going, it's much easier for them to make sure they're complying with the law. It also just provides that level of safety as well. Again, some of these are going to change, obviously. If there's changes in the law, then we need to make sure that we're updating and changing our regulations as well. So it can also help defend against employee claims. So if if your policies and procedures are up to date, it just ensures and makes it as clean as possible so people understand what the ramifications are for any of their actions. If there's any sort of bullying or something along those lines, then it's very easy for people to know, okay, these are the steps that I'm supposed to take if I have issues in my business, and I can go to the right person. I know who to go to. I know how it's supposed to be handled. And if you have this stuff clearly defined and written out, it just makes it a lot easier in case there are specific issues like this, and make sure that you handle it in the proper way based on the rules that you've written. Number 5, it also allows the employees to know where to turn for help. So that's really important as well. Like we just said for the last one, if somebody is having some sort of an issue or they have a grievance that they want to report, who is it that they're supposed to report to? Who do they turn to? The policies and procedures should pretty clearly lay out who they should go to with any questions or concerns. So when you have policies, there's all kinds of different ways that you can structure them. They're typically just a bit more general in nature compared to our procedures. Procedures are going to be very specific and detailed, but the policies are a bit more general. They're going to go over and identify any of the company rules that you have, explain why they exist, tell when the rule applies, talk about who actually is expected to be covered by this specific policy, shows how it's enforced, talk about some of the consequences that there might be if you break one of the policies, and pretty simple and straightforward. So there's not a whole lot of verbiage typically when it comes to these policies, but just kind of, again, just the ground rules. What are the rules for playing in the business that you're in? Now the procedures get a little bit more specific. It's going to explain when to take specific actions, maybe describe some alternatives, go over emergency procedures, maybe include any warnings or cautions. This is a great place to give specific examples, maybe show you how to complete different things or forms using your EMR, any of those kind of details that need to be written out. And again, they're usually written out in kind of an outline format, so again, it makes it easy for the flow, it makes it easy to read and easy to understand. So, we put forth our policy and procedure manual well over 10 years ago when we started just soon after we started our business and started bringing on employees. But that doesn't mean that they're never going to change. So you have to know when it's time to make some adjustments to your policies and procedures. And that doesn't mean you throw out everything and start over, but maybe you just make adjustments to certain parts of your policies and procedures based on what's happening. So if you start noticing an increase in the number of incidents or issues in your business, then that's a great time to know you need to make some adjustments to either your policy and or your procedures. If more staff start questioning on kind of what is normal and expected, if your operations aren't as clear as they used to be, or if there's kind of general confusion within a department or division, it's a great time again now to lay out, okay, what is our policy or what is our procedure for this specific thing, and give a little bit more clarity around that. Maybe employees are demonstrating inconsistency in their job performance, like maybe it's not quite specific on what is expected of them. And as an owner or a manager, you're getting frustrated with what it is that they're doing, and you don't know how, you're getting frustrated with what they're doing. Maybe they're voicing that they don't really know what's expected of them. Go back to your policies and procedures. Is it written down exactly what's expected of them? If it's not, now's a great time to go ahead and update that and make sure that everybody knows, hey, this is the new change that's taken place. Everybody knows when that's now in place. And then again, what's the resultant action if somebody's not following those? So here's where, if you're having those issues, you can start to clean that up and make sure, okay, from here moving forward, here's the clear expectation, and here's what's going to happen if you don't follow those rules. Patients or clients might be increasing in their complaints. So if you're having issues where there's more problems or challenges, then again, you might have to look at your policies and procedures and make sure they're clearly defined and written out. And when you're making these as well, you want to make sure that they're dated. So, the original date that we had set, that's written in our manual. And then any changes that we make, we just update it with the new date. So that way, again, everybody knows, like, as of this date, here's the new rule for that, and this is what we're going to do moving forward. So, benefits of a policy and procedure manual. Employees understand the constraints of their job without using a trial and error approach, because the policies are very clearly written. Again, if you start noticing that maybe employees are picking and choosing how they do certain things and it's not really the way you want it to be done, then go back to your policy and procedure. Let's make sure there's a good policy in place, a good procedure in place. Let the staff know from here forward, here's the procedure and this is how we're going to do it. And then it's very clearly written out. Another benefit, it enables the employees to have a clear understanding of their responsibility as well as a team responsibility, which also saves time and resources. Again, when people know exactly what's expected of them, it's easier to make sure that's getting done. Another benefit is everyone's working off the same page. Again, it's just very easy. If we were a basketball team and I put forth a play to be run and I give 3 of the people on my team one play and 2 others a different play, it's not going to work. People are going to be running around doing different things, and that's not going to be a good flow for the business. So making sure that everyone's working off the same page just makes it so much easier. Clearly written policies and procedures allow management to exercise control by exception, and you don't need to micromanage staff. It's already written out what's expected and what you're going to do if they're not meeting those guidelines, and then it just makes it clear from there what you need to do. And again, it also provides that legal representation. So it's just easy to say, hey, these are our policies. You knew that coming in. Again, we have our staff sign off on it when they're first employed. And then anytime we have any updates or changes, then it's clearly in our staff notes that was the change was made on this date and everybody was notified. And if there's something really specific that we need to make sure that everybody's aware of, that we feel like might be an issue down the line, then we'll just have everybody sign off. Like, here's the new manual, here are the updates. Please go ahead and sign off that you have seen them and read them. So here's just, an idea of some of the things that you want to cover whenever you're looking at your policy and procedure manuals. So any position descriptions, any specific personnel policies, organizational chart is helpful so people can kind of see, where do they go if they've got issues or complaints, who's in charge of this area, who's in charge of that area. Any sort of credit policy maybe for your patients or staff, not staff, but patients or clients that need to extend, payment plans and that sort of thing. Purchasing policies, like who's involved in making purchases for the business and what does that look like. Any specific misconduct issues and how those are handled, safety issues. So especially if you're dealing with any sort of things that need to be taken safely, how are you handling that? Who's in charge of that? What happens if it's not done the right way? Internet and emails. Especially nowadays, since most all of us have computers or some sort of a tablet or device that we're using throughout the day, is there something that we need to make sure that people are being safe with utilizing that, whether it be not doing personal emails on business time, not using internet for X, Y, and Z things, whatever it might be. And it can be as broad or as specific as you need it to be based on the employees that you have. Any sort of forms or letterhead that need to be used with certain discussion that goes out or education, whether it be to staff or to patients. Any specific like benefits that we were discussing earlier, time off use, any of those kind of things. A big one now is social media use. So, some companies discuss things like, there are not to be any derogatory remarks about our business if you're employed with us, or using social media on your business time is allowed, is not allowed, and if there's any parameters in regards to that. And there's plenty of other things that can be included in your P&P manual, but this just gives you an idea of kind of where to get started. So in conclusion, Effective and reliable policy and procedures just kind of really set that foundation for how we operate as a business, what we look for, what we expect, and it helps to provide the best level of care. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, is to make sure that we're providing good quality care for our patients. But we also want to be good stewards of our time and good resources for our employees as well. And the easier and cleaner that this is, just the easier it is for everybody involved. So the more succinct, the more specific you can be, the better. It just helps everybody know what the game plan is moving forward and how they can be a team player.